week, a little study came out that kind of grabbed me and kind of said, oh, that's scary, because especially in my age group, you start thinking about your health. You start thinking about your heart. This big study said only about 2.7%, that's barely right, that's not even 3 out of 100 people, actually looking after themselves, actually looking after their heart, actually doing something that would prevent them from having a heart attack. Large study. And then we had this really sad news. Gary Shandling, the famed comedian, the legendary comedian who changed TV comedy forever, died. And he was only 66. Now, I know if you're listening to me and you're 35 or 30 or 40, you go, hey, 66, that's kind of old. You won't think that when you're 65. And here's the thing. You want to put it in perspective? Both of the presidential frontrunners, Mrs. Clinton and Mr. Trump, are older than Gary Shandling, and he's dead. This was something of a shock and kind of hit the zeitgeist, and when people are like, wow, suddenly he's just like, he seems so vibrant and he's gone. And I want you to understand that that's not that unusual. We've known from 1880 on that women live longer than men, and it's basically heart disease that kills men sooner. And when we're talking about heart disease, I want you to understand this. We can prevent it. And it still is the number one killer, the one thing that gets both men and women. I saw this headline recently, and it was that women are living longer than men by about 5 years. And the headline said, this was bad because the quality of life of those women wasn't very good. Let me tell you something. The quality of life of your dead is zero. When you're above ground, always better. Always, always, always better. And your behavior, how you live your life, will decide whether you get heart disease. When I was training back in Dublin, that's well over 20 years now, there were 2 cardiologists that I admired. One more than the other. One was a guy who was about 60. He believed in prevention. He believed in controlling risk factors like getting you to stop smoking, getting you to exercise, watch what you eat. And the other guy was like in his 40s, dynamic, spoke great. He was a go-getter. And we all admired him. He was an interventional cardiologist. He did angiograms. He was doing stents. He was doing whatever the latest thing was. And we thought that was super cool. And a lot of us would like to do what he did. Now, you go forward 20 years later, when I look back on that, I go to myself, who was right, who was wrong? I think the older physician who was into prevention, who wanted to correct risk factors, knew what he was doing. The interventional cardiologist, maybe not so much. He was over-relying on technology. He was over-relying on stuff like, you get into trouble, we can take you out of it. And what I want to get across this morning is that you're better off if you don't get into trouble. You're better off if you look after yourself. You're better off if you look after your heart. You're better off if you correct your risk factors. Now, a lot of you think, well, I go see a cardiologist, he'll tell me what to do. But you are in charge of your health. You are in charge of looking after your heart. If you don't do it, let me tell you, nobody is going to do it. And the risk factors we're talking about, smoking. I mean, if you smoke, what can I tell you? Your weight. You got to watch your weight. You got to get on a weighing scales at least once a month, at the very, very least. You know, I have people who come into my practice, they don't want to be weighed. They say, I know I'm overweight. But you know how much overweight you are. And then you got to watch what you eat. It's got to be heart healthy, because we now know that this low-fat, high-carb diet, which I've talked about before on this show, is not such a great idea. There should be some fat in your diet. And this is slowly seeping out there, and people are slowly beginning to understand this. The fat's not bad. The fat means satiety, which means you don't eat as much. And when you don't eat as much, you're not packing on the pounds. You're not becoming diabetic, which is a huge risk factor. Absolutely a huge risk factor for heart disease. And in California, what? 55% of us, more than 1 in 2, are either diabetic or pre-diabetic.